Okay, we are. Hey, yes, we are officially live. It happens just like that. I'm always surprised. It's like you hit the button and it's like, oh, we're live. For those of you listening live, welcome. And for those of you watching the replay, welcome as well. Before we get into our content for today, which I'm looking forward to, and that's really why I brought Darren on, is so I could learn. So you guys just get to be the beneficiaries of this as well.
Good strategy.
I did this for selfish reasons, and he responded and said, sure, let's do it. So for those of you that don't know myself or Darren, my name is Brian Williams, as you can see clearly on the screen. And my day job is I run a digital marketing agency helping businesses get appointments. When I'm not doing that, I bring business owners like Darren and others on to my live show to help spread their great message and teach us stuff that we can all use in our business. And this is some of that stuff, and probably more important now than ever, learning how to produce, conduct engaging virtual events. They're happening all over the place. If you haven't hosted one yet, you've probably been on many of them as an attendee over these last few weeks. So by way of introduction, for those of you that do not know Darren, Darren is a world champion speaker. Maybe you didn't even know that existed. It is an actual sport, okay? And I'm going to play an introductory video here in just a moment where you'll see what it means to become and how that feels in a way, a world champion speaker. And so I wanted to just set the stage before I flip over to this roughly 2-minute video. And with that, let's see if I can actually handle the technical side of this thing. Give me one quick moment. And there we go. Darren LeCroix intro.
And the 2001 World Champion of Public Speaking, Darren LeCroix. King Darren, your subjects would like to hear a few words from you.
Man, that's cool. My first prayers, I asked God if the other 8 contestants could just go over time. That's all I wanted. Again, thank you to my district, Dave McElhaney, Carmen, of course, the great, the one and only, the genius of speaking, Mark Brown, David Brooks, Ed Tate. The champions are so gracious, giving me wisdom and advice. And I knew I would work hard, but they helped keep me on the right track. Just one more little thing. Did anyone else ever cry during this thing? Am I the first one? Does that count as a gesture? I'll never forget. My dad probably doesn't even remember. He said, I don't care what you want to do. Just be the best. And I am, Dad.
Because that caring and wanting to help people comes through in everything he does.
Darren cares about you. He's a mentor.
And how to deliver a speech, how to write a speech. So it's just, I think you get the full package with Darren.
Darren, as I said earlier, challenges you, and he wants me to get better. He wants me to grow.
Someone just said, you're the world champion. What are you gonna do now? I'm going to Disneyland.
That's all right, enough.
I always like watching it though. So
thank you.
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. So for those of you that are, again, just tuning in, maybe you're not familiar with who Darren LeCroix is. We just watched him receive the World Championship Speaking Award for Toastmasters International. And you may have also seen a couple of his students saying great things about Darren. I'm actually also one of Darren's students, so it's an honor for me to be interviewing you here.
Hey, thanks. You're very coachable. You're hungry and eager. There's nothing a teacher likes better.
I am hungry and eager. That is for sure.
But the cool thing is you're already good. You already know your business and know what you do. And I think a lot of people, like I had a few times myself, we forget to be coachable. We forget to be open and our ego gets in the way. So there's nothing I like better when somebody who knows what they're doing and yet still is hungry and eager to get better. It's a beautiful thing.
I appreciate the compliment. So today we are going to be talking about how to basically put on virtual meetings, virtual events, and not be boring. And because, well, why don't we talk about that a minute? It's off script, but what's this whole thing about not being boring? Why is it important to not be boring?
Well, boring loses business, period. Whether it's, and if you're giving a live presentation, that has its own challenges. A lot of people stink at that and aren't good storytellers, and yet they're trying to sell their business. They're trying to sell their product or service. Like if you're boring, we're done. We're checked out. It's so much harder to keep the audience engaged. And now you move over to virtual, and it's even harder. It's even harder to keep your audience engaged because there's so much distractions going on. Let me share something relative to this real quick. So here is kind of how I look at it, that boring or virtual dulls everything. You see that? Okay.
Yep, we do.
Okay. So virtual dulls your connection. How can you connect? If you've ever been with a person who was selling their business or they're at a networking event and they're handing out business cards and they're like, here's my card. It's like, dude, who are you? How can you help me? Like start off with my problem. But when we get to virtual, it dulls your connection. You don't even have that eye contact, that truth. So we need the right tools to create connection. But here's the thing. We would love if somebody is sitting on the other side of the camera and they're just looking but this is a fantasy. This is never how it looks. This is just what we think as the presenter. The truth is there's all these distractions and barriers between ourselves and our audience. And if we don't keep it interesting, they've checked out. It's over. Like they're going to either log off or they're going to start checking their email or text in the background. They get the kids, look, I only got a few times. The text comes in. Oh, you're getting text bombs. Their dog's yelling. They got to go to the restroom. There's other people in the house that might not be aware they're in an important meeting. So we have all these distractions, which as soon as we get boring, that's it. They're done. Now, here's what we wish we could do. We wish we could shut off all the distractions, but that's a fantasy too. Like you just, you can request. So please shut off your phone. Oh, now you're going to tell me what to do? And the audience already doesn't like you. So if we're asking them to do something, which is logical, but who are you to tell me that? Because we haven't created that connection yet. So the best thing that we can do, the solution is to be much more engaging, that we become bigger than life on screen. The listener knows the relevance of our product or our service in their life. So now they care more about what you're going to say. So if we're not being engaging, we're actually being distracting and we're losing. And again, boring loses business.
Boring loses business. Love it. So, right, you set the table here, okay? You've let's say convinced us that boring loses business and it's really even more difficult to keep the audience's attention in a virtual meeting because of all those distractions that you mentioned. And you have less control, right? It's easier to, I think, control the room, if you will, if you're physically in front of
absolutely.
People. And I think people also, even though they have some of those distractions that you mentioned, if they're live, like a cell phone, let's say, they're less inclined to use it because they're in front of you're in front of them. So they're like, oh, I don't want to answer the phone right now or take a text.
The guilt factor.
You can see me do that. You'll call me out on it.
That's right.
But it's hard to do that. So what's that?
You feel guilty because people can see you. And that's one of the difference between when I do my meetings, my workshops, I have everybody on the screen because I want that guilt factor. I want to see what they're doing, as opposed to a webinar where we don't see the audience. Now they can be doing all those things. But if I got 500 people, I can't put 500 people on my screen to keep an eye on them. So using the right tool, again, when I do a webinar, it's got a certain intent, a certain length of time, and I know I got to keep it going much more quickly, as opposed to a meeting where I can see them and engage more.
Interesting. So that leads us into what are some of the techniques, if you will, that we can be using in virtual meetings or virtual events to keep the audience attention, to keep that to hold.
Oh, great question. And all right, Brian, this is going to be so simple, yet I don't know why more people do it. I see so many webinars, it's horrible. So number one, like, audio is more important than video. But if I don't have a good microphone and it's over here, you can hear the words, but it's not very engaging and you don't feel the connection unless you can hear the depth and the bass in my voice. Like, you and I both live here in Vegas. Okay. So this just cracks me up. You have reporters who work for a news agency and they're home in their kitchen with all these echoey backgrounds and no one's giving them a good mic, or they're using the mic on their phone. It's like, you're a flipping news organization. Like, you would think someone's got a mic and maybe they could drop it off at your house.
Right.
Like, oh,
yeah, it's so true.
It absolutely is. Finally, they got, I don't know if I should, one of the news channels, they finally got the guy who is the traffic reporter. That's another issue. Why do we have the traffic reporter on at the top of the hour? Like, we don't care about traffic. Like, if you want to mention it, like, nobody's out driving. The producers forgot the intention of what they're doing. Now, any other time in the world, hey, traffic's important. But guess what? It's not important right now. Why is that at the top of the news? If you want to mention it later, I still don't even know why they have it. But here's the key. The subject needs to be of interest to your audience. So if we have this title and it doesn't of why they should watch this or join this or what it's got to do to the audience. So number one, they got to hear you. Here's another one. And Brian, permission to be open and honest for the good of our listeners. Okay. So I'm going to share the screen again. I have another couple of slides, but this will help you understand. And this is what I learned. You know, I love teaching this because this is what I learned the hard way. This was even a year and a half ago where I was doing this video. So this was not a virtual presentation, but it makes the point. I was doing this video, and one of the event planners who was bringing me over to Italy to teach, her name is G. She goes, "What is that behind you?" And I had to turn. I'm like, "What do you mean?" Well, if you're standing in my office, this was a big, beautiful plaque made for me, framed and everything when I won the world championship by my girlfriend at the time. And if you're standing in my office, it's obvious what it is, and it looks really classy. On video, huh? What's that? Well, if your audience is going, huh? What's that? They're not listening to you. They can't be looking and trying to figure that out while they're paying attention to what you're seeing. So I immediately realized the error of my ways because of feedback from a listener. And then I had this sign created to put up there, Stage Time University. But then I started hearing from someone else saying those flowers are distracting. I thought, oh, well, it gives a touch of color. They're flowers. And they're like, no, it's distracting. So this was better. But then I realized, okay, pasty white boy on front of tan background, you know, it just blends, which is not good, bringing me vibrant, putting me in the center. So then I painted my wall blue to go with my company colors. So at the same time, you know, I am not personally a fan of virtual backgrounds, by the way. Virtual backgrounds, like, you can tell, it's just embarrassing. And
then they like move in and out of it. It's weird.
Yeah, and they get that halo effect. And some of my best friends use that, but they're not on the call now. So
so you can talk about them.
Exactly. And if the lighting's really good, it can be okay. So my buddy Mark has one of his, one of the rooms in his home, and it looks good. It looks legit. It's not distracting. But I see so many people out there Well, I'll be honest with you in a second, but my buddy Mike Davis, he's one of my coaches inside of Stage Time University. We coach people every day, every week in live calls. Well, he got lazy once, and I pass this on with his permission. You have the 1970s paneling. He's in his basement. He's got those clear cinder blocks where the light's coming through, which is also not good. You've got the whiteboard with some things written on it, which has nothing to do with what we're talking about. And then in the bottom right corner, you see that's the Muhammad Ali inspirational quote. And so you're trying to figure out what that quote is. If I'm trying to figure that out, I'm not listening. So unfortunately, most presenters give people reasons not to listen. What? Like, that seems crazy. Like, let me give you a sales pitch and then make it harder on myself. But here's the key. They're just not aware. And that's my job as a virtual presentation coach, to make you aware. And it's so simple. But if you're not aware, you don't know how to correct it. So I told my buddy Mike, I said, Mike, I love you. You got to go back to doing it the way you were. So he changed his background. And you see, there's nothing to distract me. We've got the microphone up in the top right. He looks professional, got a collared shirt on, got the headphones, and the background is just a background, but I'm not focusing on that. It's just there. So before and after, and something so simple. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. So as you're talking, I'm looking at my background.
That was next. That was next on the list.
Is that next on the list? So we're going to get some live coaching. All right. So give it to me.
Well, I mean, I love you, Brian. I'm a fan of you, Brian. But now we're like, okay, you know, his wife's upstairs and he's down in the basement in the man cave because you don't have any backlight. So and again, these things aren't expensive. A simple lamp light for $29. I went to Fry's when it was opened, and because I realized some of the people that I'm working with or teaching can't necessarily get the nice light kit. It's only like $150, but some people can't do that. But for a $30 light in front of you, like a gooseneck lamp, so you can adjust it and turn it with 3 settings, works really well. And it's $29. And then for the backlighting, I found this Home Depot. It's a work light, but it does a really nice job. You put it low and behind you, and it brightens up the background. So your background isn't too distracting, but it makes me wonder, is this the man cave? Because it's not lit. And I love you. And here's the sucky part for us as business owners, that it makes us look unprofessional, even though it has nothing to do with what we know or who we are or what our intention is to help. People are judging us. And I think that's the key, is people are judging you, right or wrong. Oh, yeah. It doesn't matter. They are. So
just to wrap up my own coaching here, from our regularly scheduled programming for me to get coached. What I was thinking about doing was actually, my whole office is surrounded with black muslin, right? So, and there is some depth back there. So I kind of wanted it to fade into black. But what you're saying is have it kind of lit in the back.
Yeah. Can I show you something real quick?
Sure.
All right. So I won't be able to hear you for a second, but.
Okay. This is live, folks. This is what happens. Okay.
So my backlight, if I shut it off.
Okay.
Backlight that I have. But something like this, Brian, before I had the one set up top, I had this, which is a simple Home Depot work light, cost $10.
Got it.
And it's very simple, where if you've ever been in the, from the conventions world, it's like an uplight.
Right.
Same thing. And what's cool is it's adjustable. It's $10.
Wow.
And it's actually super bright, but you can angle it. You can widen these. You can angle it whichever way. And bottom line is, I'm not a lighting expert, but I can look and see what's good and adjust it, and see what's good again and adjust it.
Okay. Done.
Right. So
I love it. I got homework to do. Okay. Well, back to our regularly scheduled programming, where we're actually helping people watching, not me. But hopefully this is helpful. So far, we've got a couple of takeaways. Number one,
and hi, Phil put in a comment. Hey, Phil.
Yeah, Phil, my buddy Phil's out there. By the way, if you comment with a question, we will answer your question. So please ask Darren a question. If you comment with an emoji like Phil, we'll just show it on the screen. So
That's pretty cool.
but if you comment with a
You're ahead of
question,
me in some areas, and that's cool.
so there we go.
So here's the question, though, Brian. Do you have sound effects?
I don't have sound effects.
So when there's an aha,
I like it. That's another way to keep people entertained and engaged.
and then
No, that's some kind of a machine.
it's a so also we got then, and if I have a bad joke, and if I really need the self-esteem laughter, I use a Rodecaster soundboard. And so it gives you these buttons that you can put MP3s in. And so they're accessible at the touch of a button. So I love my little Rodecaster.
Now, without a Rodecaster, I know that machine, and it's not inexpensive either. So
$600.
for those of what's that?
It's $600.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not inexpensive, but you could still queue up some iTunes if you remember royalty free, though. You can't just use somebody's music because you want to and you bought it. Like now you're being, it's illegal to do that. So you got to make sure it's royalty free sound effects, royalty free music. You can go to musicbakery.com or your favorite royalty free music. Just Google it.
Yep, absolutely. That's really, especially when you're doing these lives, because they're actually saved on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're streaming, and those can get banned if you don't use royalty-free music. Okay, so we've got good audio quality, good lighting, non-distracting backgrounds, sound effects to add some enthusiasm. Topic that's topical to your audience. You mentioned something about keeping people on screen. Explain that a bit to me.
Well, if I can see you, so I can see your background. If I do like a 2-day workshop. So you've been to some of my workshops, Brian. When we do that, we do it live in Vegas, but then we also have virtual seats. So we sell a virtual seat, but I want to see, like, I can see you, because if you started like texting or something, I could tell you're texting.
Right.
So you feel guilty. You're probably not going to do it. But if something's really distracting, I can even call you out on it. But here's the key. If you're, setting the context at the beginning, I've got to set the rules. So that way, if somebody's breaking my rules, I can call them out on it and I'm not the bad guy.
Got it.
So we've got to
right up front, you're telling people, please don't, please stay focused. Don't use your phones, blah, blah, same thing you would if you were at a live event.
Yeah. And if you got something to do, if you got, like you need to go to the restroom, just shut off your camera. If there's an emergency, shut off your camera. That's fine. Then I can't see it. But at the same time, like you're here, we've also got to remind them you're here not to watch me, not to listen to me, but that at the end, you're different. You have new insights that you can go out and use. So you came for your transformation. So we've almost got to remind them, why are you here? Why did you invest in this? Even if it's free, they're still investing an hour. But again, it goes back to, I've got to set the context, and then it's my job to be more engaging.
Got it. I'm noticing a couple things. One of the things I'm noticing is you're wearing headphones, and I'm curious about why you do that.
Sure.
And then the follow-up to that is you're very close to your camera. And I'm noticing that you will change the plane a bit, where you'll come forward to the camera and then back away from the camera. Is that part of your keeping the audience engaged technique?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just
no. You nailed on 3 things. So number 1, I used to make fun of people who are in a headset. I'm like, dude, really? You need headphones? And I used to make fun of them. And now I can't believe it's like I'm doing it. But now I understand why. So just like when my audio is not as good, you can listen to your computer speakers and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you have headphones on, you're blocking out more of your own surroundings and you're going to feel more connected to the people online.
Interesting.
So it's not required, but I feel like if I care about my audience, I got to have that much of a connection. I got to have as much connection as possible. So I also hear you better, which makes me feel closer connection to you or to my students. So that's number one. Number two is when we teach this, think here's one of the words of the day: micro expressions. Micro expressions. So your audience can sense when you're saying or doing something insincere. So like, I know, Brian, you're not a Toastmaster, but Toastmasters, emerging presenters that are some of my audience, they're taught you must do a gesture. But if I do a gesture and my eyes don't change, it's a choreographed body movement that has no emotional connection. So the audiences today are so savvy that they're going to pick up on that. And when they pick up on that, you then come across as insincere. So I am kind of animated, but it's natural, authentic enthusiasm as opposed to me trying too hard. So people shouldn't try to be enthusiastic, just be you. But if I say, here I am, so this new idea, I'm so excited about it. You see my eyes change. You see more of the crow's feet. So that's the real authenticity that most audiences, most viewers are going to pick up on that. Because remember, they're judging us, especially if they don't know us. So if they even get any indication you're not being sincere, you just lost them. They're going to log off. They're not going to buy your service. They're not even going to want to know more. And sometimes we do things like this to get people intrigued. What else do they know? How else could they help me? Because I like what they said and how they said it. So your eyes, if you even watch a Disney or a Pixar animated film, notice that the characters who are two-dimensional, they're a line drawing on a flat screen. So they're two-dimensional. But the Pixar and Disney understands that the way and the shape of their eyes change with the emotion of the character. So if I'm back here, like even if you could hear me better, if I'm back here, you're not going to feel the same connection as if I'm up closer and you can see my eyes. So now look, these are world-class techniques. This, I just need to know how to set up a Zoom meeting. Well, good. Go to Zoom and learn that. I try to help people get good and go to unforgettable, but it's something that I've studied. This is what I do and what I love and what I'm passionate about. And Brian, my own family doesn't care that I know these things. I'm glad you care, or I wouldn't be here.
I do care. And I love the word micro expression. So one thing that I notice about, just again, myself and others, I'll also wear glasses. And I have struggled with how to position my glasses so that people can see my eyes without the monitor glaring back at me. And I've tried different things like tilting them and what have you, but I can see the importance of people seeing your eyes.
Well, it is absolutely. And I wear glasses too, but I need them for far. I don't need them for close up. So I ditched the glasses. But some people need them to be able to see or read text. So I get that. So what I'd even consider for your situation, Brian, is not even necessarily the angle of your glasses, but the angle of your monitor.
Got it.
So if I twisted my monitor this way, so let's just say I had a second camera. So you could get a second camera that you look right into, but then you can keep an eye on what's happening over here. But that leads us to another important point that you're doing good, by the way. So I'm gonna give you coaching when you need it, because I know you are a sponge, and that's one of the things that makes you a great business dude is eye contact. Mark Brown, who is my coach, says you need to talk to your friends behind the lens. Mark Brown, your friends behind the lens, because my natural tendency is I want to look at you, Brian, but if you look at me now. Now
I'm typing.
Okay. So if anybody looks at me now, if my eyes are on Brian on the screen, they're not on the lens. So that's what we got to be careful about. And this could be the most powerful Post-it note you ever create, which is this: look here.
Ah,
I put that next to my camera. Even when we do our live events, if you ever looked behind what we were doing on our stage, I have a big one of these. Regina, my office manager, makes this big one that says, "Look up here," because we have the monitor of everyone who's online down here. I got to remember to talk up here. And that is huge, like huge. And people on their phones, even, they're looking at the person on the screen rather than where the lens is. And how
right.
can you create eye contact without looking at the lens? So it's counterintuitive. It does feel weird, but it's a new adjustment for the virtual world that you got to get used to this skill.
We have a question from an audience member. I'm going to see if I can display it as well. Thoughts about shout outs to participants coming in late or anytime at all?
Yeah. Shout outs are good. And I've even, again, as I've been doing this for years, I'm still learning. And last week, my ego got in the way. And I'm like, I'm going to listen to this guy who's just went to this course and now he's going to regurgitate what he learned. And I was like, I got my own things to do. And I was like, shut up, Darren. You're teaching a class on it. Maybe there's one idea you can come up with. And I was like, I got to remember to be a sponge again. And I did. And he had some great points. And the shout out, I think, is great. So let me give you a scenario. So let's just say we're starting at the top of the hour. I would get on and start broadcasting at the top of the hour, and I would spend 2 to 3 or 4 minutes to engage my audience. Hey, let us know where you're coming in from, Barbara, Tom from Charlotte. So they get the feeling of connection. The challenge is the people who want to start on time and are bored, they don't want to listen to that. They're there for the content. Get to the content quickly. So now what we do is we start broadcasting 5 minutes before the hour. So we say all that before the actual start time, so they feel engaged. Now, shout out to somebody who comes late. You got to be careful because it depends on the attitude and the delivery, and we've got to be welcoming. There might be a legit reason why they're not there on time. But again, if they're paying, they're paying. If they're free, they're free. So we maybe didn't sell the urgency of getting them there on time, but we don't know. But you'll look like a jerk if you're calling somebody out for being late. Now, if you do it playfully, hey, Bob, it also depends. You might know the person, but does the audience know you know the person? Because it's okay to tease your friends.
Right.
But so like, for example, when I do, we used to do a cruise with the champions. And it's me and my best friends, Mark Brown, Ed Tate, David Brooks, and we're on this cruise ship. And we know each other so well, and we just love making fun of each other. And so we dove right into doing it. And the audience didn't know we were best friends, and they thought we were being mean. And that was a big aha for me. So I backed up. And now what I do is I set the context. Remember, we thought it said this before, set the context. Hey, everybody, I'm here with Brian. He's one of my friends. He's one of my buddies, somebody I respect dearly. Would it be okay if we tease each other a little bit? It'll be more fun. Is that okay with you? And we make sure, even if only one person, hey, Tom, thanks for putting that comment in. I appreciate that. All right, Mark, we can make fun of each other. But now, again, we've set the context. So it depends is often my answer. It depends. But I would be careful about shouting out if somebody's late, because now you just created a distraction to the flow that you are in for the people who are listening. Now, if them coming on is a distraction, just like somebody walking into the room late at a stand-up comedy club, if they sit them right up front, everybody saw that. So a comedian in my old days would say, hey, can I get you something like a watch? But it's in the context of a comedy club. Everyone saw them bringing them up front. So it was already a distraction. So now we're acknowledging that distraction. If somebody came in late and they sit him back, now most people didn't see that. You saw it. Okay. If I say, hey, can I get you something like a watch? I'm taking myself out of my flow, and most of the people didn't know. So it's not as funny and it becomes a distraction. So it depends.
Okay. As a kind of a follow-up to that, I have been hosting a lot of different types of meetings and webinars lately. And I've noticed that there are quite a few people that tend to come in at different times, right? So
Mhm.
what I is it what I've been doing is reminding. I haven't actually called individuals out, but I've been reminding the new arrivals kind of what to do to ask a question, kind of the rules, if you will. Now, it works to some extent for the new people, but then the old people have heard me say the same thing 5, 6 times. So
Mm.
I'm cognizant, like how often, if I should even repeat that ever, or just at the very beginning,
Yeah. Do you usually do it with a co-host or by yourself?
just by myself.
So one of the tips, if this is your business, and you can, I mean, it depends, is we try to teach people to have a co-host,
Got it.
because then the co-host can handle that. Whereas they can have almost, and you could do this yourself, but have those instructions like in a Word document or something that you can copy and paste and put it in the chat.
Got
So
it.
now if they're new, they can read the chat. And if you put it in the chat 5 times and I'm listening to you, I don't care if it's 5 times, but if you instruct people 5 times, now eventually I'm going to start getting frustrated. Like, hey, dude, I was here on time.
Right.
Because they were late. Who cares? Like, help me. I only got an hour, and then I got to go pick up the kid from babysitter in the other room. I don't know. I don't know what people got to do now. But so I think it depends, but there's ways to do it. But we want to honor the people who are there on time.
Great. Love it. Now, you brought this up a bit, is you have some history as a comic, as a comedian, and with humor. So how can we, or should we, be incorporating humor and into our presentations somehow?
Well, I think the biggest one is bring the mindset of fun. Hey, let's have fun with this. And almost even ask your audience for permission. You guys okay if we goof around a little bit and have some fun? Is that cool? You agree? One of the keys is getting agreement from people. And I think that's big. And look at your points. So I would say, okay, what are the points you need to get across? We need to teach people. So if I was teaching presentation skills, live presentation skills, it would be never turn down stage time. It would be get a coach. It would be get clear on your message. So let's say those are the 3 ideas. Well, what bit of humor, what video, what image, what story could I tell that could be funny and yet make one of those points? So we want to use humor with a purpose, not for the sake of just being fun. Like if you bring your own fun and jovialness to it, well, that's fine. But if you're just like telling jokes that you saw, like that's not cool. Like that's, the tension breaker should have a purpose to it. And again, this is just my opinion, but you asked, so there you go.
That's what we're here for. Okay.
By the way, adult sippy cup. An adult sippy cup. I've had glasses of water, and 3 times in the past week, I knocked it over and almost lost my $600 soundboard because it's stupid. I know this. So now it's like either a water bottle
with a cap
on every time, or like a sippy cup, adult sippy cup. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so I think you've covered a lot of this, but I want to ask this question just in case you haven't. What are some of the other mistakes that you see presenters making, especially virtual presenters making repeatedly?
I think one of them is what I call pace elements. And I learned this from my other coach, David McElhaney. And he was teaching me live presentations. He's since passed. But he said, if we look at a live presentation, we want to, think of television. There's commercial every so often, but they don't put all the commercials right up front, or they don't put all the commercials right at the end. They intersperse it after they get you engaged. And what do we do? Just like Paul Harvey, come back and you'll hear the rest of the story. What are we doing to keep people curious, engaged? But he said, when you ask a question, that's one pace element. When you tell a story, that's another pace element. When you do an exercise, that's another pace element. When you show a case study, that's another pace element. And I think with virtual, the key is the flow and using all of the different ones, but never staying with the same one for too long. which is why I share some slides. We showed a video. And it's just like in a live presentation. This is like corporate presenters love this. It's so ridiculously simple, but if you don't know about it, and that is if you're doing a live presentation, you have slides up, it's the B button. If you press the B button, it renders the screen black or blank. Okay. And it's not shutting the slide down. What happens? Think about this, Brian. If I shut the slide down, where does your attention go?
Probably to the screen. Or
no, if I shut the slide down, they're looking at a slide and I shut it off. Where does their attention
go back to you?
Comes back on me, and then I turn the slide back on. Where does the attention go?
Goes back to the slide.
Okay, so if it's like you're a choreographer, it's like I'm choreographing their attention by going to the B button. But when I tell a story, I shut off the screen. Why? Because I want their attention to come to me. And then my next point, okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is never turn down stage time. Click, and then it goes to the screen. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping it moving and I'm keeping the attention going. And that is what is engagement. So pace elements, like I would consider what you and I are right now is like the talking head. The talking head is good. It's awesome, but not the whole time.
Right.
And even just like right now, you and I are more engaging than just me saying everything alone or you saying everything alone. So that's why I know you're interviewing me, but having like a co-host when I do all my webinars, I always try to have a co-host, even though I could do it myself. I always try to have Mark or Ford Sakes or one of my business partners on with me, because now the two voices is more engaging than a single voice. And again, it's still flow. And one other idea that most people probably never heard of, and Brian, you've heard me teach this in speaking and presenting, is the word you or your. Every time I say the word you, it reaches out to the audience and connects them to my audience. In your business, okay, they're thinking about their audience. I'm reconnecting. So the word you and your. So I learned this again from my world-class coaches. The opening of my world championship speech is, can you remember a moment when a brilliant idea flashed into your head? It was perfect for you. And then all of a sudden, from the depths of your brain, another thought. Okay, so in the first 5 to 10 seconds, I've used the word you or your 4 times. So it's not I, and then you should too. Mark Brown says brilliantly, it's your story, but it's for us. Your story, your experience, but it's for us, the listener. So I'm saying you, if you're the presenter and I'm listening and Brian and I are listening, it's your story, but it's how to help us. And I think just that bridge of gap, and again, using the word you or your is critical. It's great on stage. I think it's just as critical virtually because it's causing the brain to engage when you do that.
Maybe even more so virtually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Love it. Some great mistakes to avoid.
Real quick on that. So in my 8-minute speech on the World Championship, you can check it out on YouTube, I used the word you or your 34 times, which is over 4 per minute. Now, I didn't consciously put in a certain number. So that's just a rule of thumb. You don't have to go for that, but just be aware of using those words and constantly. It's like we got to keep their attention. It's like, hey, shiny thing. We got to keep their attention. Hey, shiny thing.
Sound effects.
Well placed. Yeah, and sound effects is another pace element, if you will.
Got it. So when you're thinking, you really should plan out then these and have these pace elements literally staged and know when you're going to pull them in.
Well, plan it and improv it. Plan it and improv it. So I know, Brian, you're good at that too. It's like having that ability to just switch in the moment. We've got to be improv right now. We having life improv. We've got to have our ability. We can get mad and frustrated and PO'd, but that doesn't help you, feed your family, keep your business moving. It doesn't do all those things. We've got to okay, it stinks. And what can I do? And I think that's why virtual presentations is becoming such a huge thing right now, because now people are being forced to. And I think after the fact, when we go back to the new normal, or go ahead to the new normal, I should say, I think virtual is going to be much more accepted than it was before, because now you had people who were forced to do it now have phone calls with their friends and family via Zoom. So now they're in a whole different place, and now they have more comfort with it, and they see the value of it. That's why that's why you and I, as business owners, we've got to be better than the average to be able to stand out in the crowd.
Yeah, some of the cool examples that I have experienced of people going virtual. I mean, my wife and I have been a part of a 100-person dance party through Zoom. It was DJ'd by a professional DJ, and it was to raise money for a charity. That was interesting to be doing that by, my wife and I dancing in our living room, looking at the screen with 100 other people. We participated. We watched a San Francisco-based drag queen show because they're shut down, but they wanted to keep the show on. So they all did their performances from their individual residences through Zoom. Last night, we saw a dueling piano show through, I don't think it was Zoom, but it was some virtual thing.
Sure.
And it's interesting. I think you're right that people are going to be, that they're experiencing this as an audience and also as a host, and it's going to continue.
Yep. And hey, Don Wexler, welcome.
Yep. I just saw Don Wexler. Don, if you have a question for Darren, please ask it in the comments and we will answer it for you. Don is also a business owner and runs a video production studio out of the Bay Area. And so I'm sure
A quick thought too on backgrounds, because I talked to Ed Tate about this yesterday, that you also have to be careful with bookshelves, because here's what people do. They look at your bookshelf and try to read, so it could be a credibility thing, but they're like, oh, they're judging you on the books, and they're leaning in, trying to read it, which it's your call. That could be good or bad, but we just have to be aware. So if it's your own book, even better. But we've got to be aware that this is what people are doing. Now it's your responsibility to use that knowledge to make it a better experience. So if you want to be in front of a library and have all your books on your bookshelf, that's fine. Just know people are going to try and read it. So reference it. Well, here's a lesson I learned from this, or something like that. Anyway, just be aware. Here's what people are going to do. You're the person, you're the boss, you're the expert in your area. How are you going to use it to help people?
I am thinking about that personally. I'm sure everybody else is as well. Okay. My next question that I prepared, I'm looking over at my other monitor here, what are some of the critical tips that you could offer fellow business owners?
Well, we've mentioned some of them, but I would really say telling your client stories is probably the most critical. If you're trying to bring in business, if you're trying to influence people or convince them, I want to hear stories of people you've helped. And I think this is, we teach storytelling, and online it's just horrible. But we want to know, okay, the people who came to you, where were they situationally and emotionally? And tell us this story through the dialogue of your client. I want to hear them say, man, Brian, I was struggling with my business and I didn't know how to get more appointments. And I saw you present at the Chamber of Commerce and I thought, wow, maybe this guy could help me. But I was like, I don't think he can. But I came to Brian, and fast forward 6 months later, I am booking 3 appointments a day. I am so pumped. Brian changed the trajectory of my business. Now I'm da-da-da-da-da. So we want to know where the client is emotionally and situationally beforehand. And after they've worked with us, it's like before Christ and after Christ, before Corona and after Corona, like before they experienced you. So we got to feel their struggle. We want to see the client. So if you've got visuals of them with permission, then show that for sure. But at the same time, if not, she was 5'2". She was a little spitfire. Patricia Fripp, over from Great Britain, came over with $100 in her pocket. So I want to get to know the customer, succinctly. And then where were they when you met them and where are they now? And we've got to see that dichotomy. The where are they now should also reflect how you help people. It should reflect the difference in the character because of you. It's one of the most influential ways that you can tell that story. But again, I want to hear it in their dialogue. I don't want to hear you say they're great. I want to hear them say, you're the Yoda. Whatever your business or service is, that's the Yoda. But I want to know the before and after so I can emotionally relate to where they were, because that's where I am now. And I want to have that aspiration of I want what they got. The old Harry met Sally. I'll have what she's having.
Sure.
Sure. So I just think, and there's many creative ways to do it. But if there's one thing other than these virtual tips, it's the telling of your stories.
Love it. I want to then give you a little unsolicited or plug for an event that you're hosting with your team next week. In fact, so if you don't mind, Darren, I'm going to share this right now. I have it on a tab.
And I created a discount code for your listeners too.
Oh, that's cool too. Didn't even know you did that. But let me share the screen here. So this is available. I'll put up the URL, but you are hosting along with some of your team. I don't know, maybe your whole team. It sounded like are coming out to teach and go into depth over 2 full days, right? Of how to do these virtual presentations.
We're going deep. I realize there's 100 people doing 1-hour webinars out there, which is good and helpful. But unless you're going deep, even when we taught our 90-minute webinars, like, oh man, there's so much more I want to teach. I want to show them the down and dirty how to do it, not just what to do, and pull back the curtain. So
what's the URL to get to this website?
virtualpresentationsworkshop.com. Literally just the blue letters there, virtualpresentationsworkshop.com. And the discount code, if you want to put it in any of the comments, because you're watching this interview right now, workshop 25, workshop 25, all caps, by the way, workshop 25. That'll give you 25% off. And this is something we put together. Thank you. We put together just, in fact, I'm still working on the workbook. As soon as we're done, I'm going to go work on the workbook. And do you know who Mark Sanborn is?
The name is familiar. And just so I know, the discount code is workshop 25, all caps, or does it matter?
Yeah, workshop 25, all caps. It does matter.
Okay.
And that'll give any of your listeners 25% off of this. And it's coming up this week in just a few days. So definitely join us for that. If this has been somewhat intriguing and like if your reputation matters, you got to take the time to understand this to the nth degree. If the experience, if the outcome for your virtual audience matters, look, what if you could just get one more client if you were more engaging? And that's what the whole 2 day is about. But Mark Sanborn said something. We interviewed him for our podcast. Mark and I will come out next week, but he said something brilliant. The businesses that are going to survive now, it's the ones that can serve the newfound pain. The businesses that can serve the newfound pain, all the new pains and issues and stresses that just was happening because of the coronavirus, the video, the people closing their businesses, people not getting checks, this newfound pain. If you can help people, you're going to be the business that stands out on the other side of this. So when we go back to the new normal, you're more positioned to help people, but now they have new pains. So I would have never thought even 2 months ago that I'm going to do a 2 day workshop on virtual presentations. But the cool thing is, Brian, we have been teaching this way and trained literally virtually, literally thousands of presenters from around the world with virtual presentations. So we're just teaching you all the mistakes we made over a decade, Mark Brown, Ed Tate, and me.
Awesome. That's going to be a great, great event. So for those that want to join Darren and his team, virtualpresentationsworkshop.com, and use the workshop 25 discount code to save you some bucks. And that's next Wednesday and Thursday, right?
Yep. 8:30 a.m. Pacific time to 4 p.m. Pacific time. And if you can only make part of it, you're going to get access to the recordings as well. So Want to
Awesome.
make it super simple. And Brian, as a stage time member, you get a much bigger discount.
Awesome. I can't wait. So yeah, that's great. I have learned a lot on this call personally. I am sure, look here. I am sure our audience members have as well. Is there any last comments that you would like to share before we end this call today?
Yeah, just know the world is in pain now and they need you in your business to feel that, know that, and help them. I mean, this is what I do. And I thought, how could I help the world? Well, I could get better at what I do. I could teach this skill that I've been doing to help other business owners like you get their business across virtually and have fun with it. If you're stuck there, they're stuck there. Choose to have fun with it. Make it fun.
Awesome. Well, with that, Darren, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your Sunday afternoon to be here with me, and just love being part of your world. And I'm looking forward to what both of us end up creating in the new normal, as you mentioned. So,
Amen. Well, hey, thanks for having me, and thanks. Keep doing what you're doing, man.
I will appreciate it.